And welcome in to the second half of the NFL Week 1 matchup countdown with the Fantasy 4-Pack. I'm your host, Ian Power, joined as always by Matt Vitale, Frankie Santiago, coming to you in the wee hours of the morning on Friday. We decided to record this one after the Thursday night game as opposed to before it. So anyone watching this one, you get the unique experience of listening to us talk about our thoughts on that Thursday night game before we dive into the next half of the Sunday games. But before we do that, don't forget to give us a follow on Twitter. Slap that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. That way you get notified as soon as new content drops. We love you for it. Helps us a lot. And also make sure to share us with your friends, especially in season. The draft has already happened. So now we're just trying to give you advice to win your week. It's much more personalized. There's a lot less to lose from sharing us with your friends. My biggest takeaway from that game, my God, CEH. Ugh. Talk about payoff if you believed in that kid, as I did. If you talk about payoff if you believed in that kid in the offseason, watching him get, 23 carries?
Yeah, it was 22-23, got a couple garbage time ones after they got that.
They gave him the workload. The next highest was 7.
Yeah. Me watching that, I loved the usage that he got. I am still a little bitter just because of the way our drafts panned out. I was either too high to justify taking him over a guy like Zeke or Saquon, or in our main league where my own opinion was used against me, and the guy at number 4 sniped CEH.
25 carries, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew you got a few. I stopped exactly tracking it when there was 40 seconds left. I knew you got a few garbage time ones, but
138 yards.
Yeah, it was nuts just watching that kid run. I love his how fast he is with those jump cuts and the spin moves, and he can take a hit. He took a few solid shots in this game and
kept bouncing back,
kept going.
He was exciting to watch.
Yeah, it was exciting. One thing we were going back and forth about a little bit all game was his yak, and that's one thing I was just kind of looking at him. I personally feel like he might have an unimpressive yak as the season comes to its close, but I think his elusive score is going to be through the roof.
I'm just gonna, if he keeps averaging 5.5 yards a carry, I don't care how good he is after contact. But he looked pretty good after contact today. Short of when he was just getting form tackled, he was shaking guys. He was making moves. He was never going down. He was almost never going down to the first guy. They were having to commit to tackling him. He wasn't going down to light contact. He was running through things like you wanted to. Shaking off the trash. I hesitate to say I want to start the victory lap now because you never want to overreact to week 1, but be still my beating heart.
Yeah, one thing I was, that actually speaks true to how I used to be as a fantasy player too is Will Fuller on your team. First half, ghost. Second half, he really came out there and showed,
they were targeting him in the first half. He wasn't coming down with it. It seemed like Watson sort of found his groove in the second half and was able to, actually get balls within the vicinity of Fuller as opposed to just airmailing it over his head.
Well, no, the whole idea that I was going to say about that too is he ended up with 18 points in half PPR, depending on what
he ended up with. I can tell you.
Depending how your scoring bonuses are.
He ended up with roughly 18.2.
Yeah, so that's a good game out of Fuller, and it's weird to see him as a volume play.
8 for 112. I'll never be mad at.
Yeah, and that goes back to my whole thing that I was going to say too. Is if you see not very high numbers from your studs in the first half of a game, don't get super worried about it. They may not get that super high ceiling, but they're going to get something.
Yeah, it definitely limits your...
You definitely have to have faith in your roster. Don't get...
Frankie, part of fantasy football is stressing about your team after the first quarter because no one has points. Come on.
Well,
yeah.
Well, I'm saying, even if they're not hitting that super high ceiling, don't like even if they have a bad week, I mean everybody has a bad week, unless you're Pat Mahomes. But
I don't think you can stop people from stressing. But if I was to bastardize your take a little bit, I think the big thing there is if someone does have a bad week, don't at the player. But I was ecstatic. Football was back. I was very happy watching CEH run. I mean,
I almost shed a tear.
Both sides looked a little sloppy off the bat. I think the main takeaway from this game is, one, CEH looked amazing, and two, just the running backs in general looked really good. David Johnson looks like he is, in fact, not washed up and still has plenty left in the tank.
He did look really good out there, tonight.
And both defenses looked surprisingly good. I mean, obviously, the Chiefs put up numbers on Houston, but, like, Houston was limiting Mahomes. They actually picked him at one point if it wasn't for a flag. I think that Houston could be a sneaky, maybe not sneaky good, but better defense than we were expecting.
Also, J.J. Watt can stay on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, that was my big takeaway at the half, was just both defenses looked like they could hang with what should be better tier offenses. I think the one thing that scared me in this game was how the Chiefs were playing, where they weren't really using those down the field, using Mahomes to sling the rock half across the field with their speedsters. So that's why you saw McCole Hardman just drop a dud tonight, and then Tyreek Hill had to salvage his night on a few plays in the second half. So I was just worried, at least maybe with CEH having this breakout, do they want to play a little more dink and dunk and short routes and try and have him break it open?
Honestly, speaking to McCole Hardman, he's someone who, if I have him right now, I'm dropping him. He's a flat cut for me. I mean, he had one target for one catch for 6 yards tonight. Out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 Chiefs who were targeted in this game, he was 7th.
So let me then put it to you. If you're a McCole Hardman owner, you're flat cutting him. Are you going out and picking up Demarcus Robinson?
Yes. I would put a waiver. I mean, I want to see what the rest of the week looks like. There might be other players I'd rather claim over him. But Demarcus Robinson did get 6 targets, so tied with Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. It seemed like they were spreading the ball around a lot, and somehow that spreading of the ball did not make its way to McCole Hardman. I mean, 2 running backs ended up with 2 targets, and McCole Hardman ended up with 1. And if you're expecting that, like, Clyde Edwards-Helaire isn't going to spend the season getting 2 targets a game. We all expected him to have a pass-catching role in this offense. So that's only going to go up if there's only so many targets in this offense. If Demarcus Robinson's going to have a role, which no one expected, and Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill are obviously still going to have their roles. Sammy Watkins, we have to see what happens. This could be a mirage just like last year, but it does. That's my biggest worry from this game on the Chiefs side of the ball is I think McCole Hardman might be more fantasy owner hopes and dreams at this point than actual production on the field, just because it seems like the Chiefs don't need him. And then on the Houston side of the ball, my God, was Deshaun Watson running for his life out there.
Yeah.
He looked like he didn't have an O-line at times. Like, I mean, and there was that play near the end of the game where he was running towards the left sidelines, and he made like 2 defenders miss, and the third one got him because they were just he only had defenders in front of him. Like,
yeah, all night their right guard was just letting people through like he wasn't even there. It was embarrassing to watch, and every time he dropped back, he looked like he had a good look out there, and then just immediately had to abandon it because he was had to run up the sideline to either scoot out for 3 yards or just throw a very inaccurate ball because he had to sling it sidearm while running away from defenders. Like, I hope this is something that gets fixed in the future, or maybe they bring in like one of their running backs. Hopefully, if Duke Johnson's not actually hurt, maybe they can bring Duke in to give him some pass coverage. I mean, man, like you said, you can't get the ball downfield to any of your receivers if you're just sprinting up and down the field all game.
4 sacks.
Yeah,
Chris Jones had his way with that.
It felt like more.
Well, that's credit to Deshaun Watson. He's able to scramble out. He's able to make forward progress. There was probably a couple times where he was counted as tackled for a loss or he got a slight gain, but not enough to make it work. But 4 sacks. Chris Jones just had his way with that offensive line. You got to be a little worried if you're. They were fine on run blocking, but for pass blocking, you got to be a little worried if you're a Deshaun Watson owner after watching that game, just watching his O-lineman be just turnstiles out there. All right, you guys ready to dive into the second half of games?
Not even in the slightest.
Okay, Frankie, we'll wait. We'll wait for you to be ready then.
In the meantime,
no, do you guys have any other takeaways you wanted to bring up about that game? I mean, are you guys worried about Tyreek Hill at all? I don't think there is. For me, there's no real cause to be. I mean, you're not happy with his performance tonight. It's 5 for 46 and a touchdown is nothing to write home about, but.
I'm not super worried. I mean,
you expect him to just outlier of a night. Mahomes didn't throw much.
Yeah, it was a like Vitaly was saying, it was a weird game where you weren't seeing the Chiefs as they normally play, and whether that's due to CEH or they're just trying to run a different kind of game script.
I mean, I think it was partially because they were up a lot, so they didn't need to throw as much. In games where teams score more, we could see different.
Yeah, they were up pretty early, pretty hard, so I'm not super worried.
Houston very briefly had the lead, and they never got it back. All right, let's jump into the next half of games here. Packers, Vikings, 45-point total. I'm excited for this one.
I am also excited for this one.
I like players on both sides of the ball. As we'll get to actually later in the show, I have a player from this game as one of my money picks of the week. But I think that this could be a very interesting game. I don't think it could really be a shootout because I think the Vikings are going to try and just chew clock here. But I think you could see some good fantasy points go up on the Packers side of the ball and some good points go to Dalvin Cook on the Vikings side of the ball. Thielen will probably get his. This likely won't be a week-breaking performance out of him, but he'll probably do well enough for you. I'd say like 50 to 100 in that range of yardage and maybe a touchdown.
Oh, I'm actually a lot more bullish on him this week just because I don't believe in the Packers' defense enough to really stop them, and I just think he's going to get force-fed targets. So I think it's easily that we see him with 8 to 10 receptions and probably getting close to. I have him more towards like 80 to 110 as far as the yardage. The touchdown is the only thing I'm kind of up or down on because I could see Dalvin just taking him or Rudolph just kind of vulturing him from him. But
sure.
As far as yardage and receptions for PPR and half point PPR, he should be a lock in play. You should have no worries against Green Bay. I think the big thing with me is the 46-point over under. I'm actually kind of surprised. I felt like it would be just
45.
a little bit. 45. Yeah, so they probably updated it since I last looked at it, but I had it at 46. But still, I mean that's pretty low. I figured they would be a little bit higher, but I mean we do know that Minnesota likes to run the ball and eat the clock.
Yeah.
So I think I think I would put this one on the over side. So I'm interested in most players in this matchup.
I only think this one hits the over if the Packers sort of take control of the game and force the Vikings to play up tempo, because we know the Vikings want to play a slow game. So if the Vikings can keep it tied or one score game where they don't really have to chase much, or even if they're leading, then I think we see that this be at or under the 45. But if the Packers can get up by a score or two, this one could become a sneaky shootout, because we know Cousins can enter into shootout mode if he has to. He does have some weapons back there: BC Johnson, Justin Jefferson, in addition to Adam Thielen.
Yeah,
Dalvin Cook can catch the ball. Irv Smith Jr. should be interesting at tight end.
Yeah, I think this game's going to go, honestly, very similar to this Thursday game that we just watched. I think it's going to be one team, whether it's the Vikings or the Pack, getting out early and forcing the other team. More than likely going to be the Packers going ahead early and forcing the Vikings to throw the ball.
Outside of just the standard players in this one, are you guys starting anyone? Obviously you're starting Dalvin, you're starting Thielen, you're starting Jones, you're starting Adams, and you're starting Rodgers. Actually, you might not be starting Rodgers in this one if you don't really believe it's a shootout, but because he went late enough that you feasibly could be starting another quarterback over him. So, are you guys starting Rodgers in this matchup?
Yeah, like I said, I've been saying all offseason, I think Rodgers' hate's been a little bit crazy. So, I mean, especially with where he went, you could have gotten him for a mint in your drafts. So, start him unless you have some other guy that fell deep down and is a clear better play. But I don't see, like I said, Minnesota's defense is something to be worried about, but I think Rodgers has the talent and he has the weapons to get it done for you. So he is like, I have like 82% confidence that he will produce.
It's a strong number.
Yeah, it's strong, but there is clear room for failure.
I think the biggest thing that I'm interested in this one, and I don't know if I would start either of these guys this week, but I'm interested to see if Alan Lazard actually is the guy behind Adams, because MVS was drawing rave reviews in camp. You know, Rodgers himself came out and spoke about him. I feel like this could be a little bit of a money where your mouth is type of game for those receivers, where obviously we know Adams isn't getting dethroned, but one of those two is going to emerge as the second option. I'm curious to see which, if the hype actually is going to lead to MVS sort of regaining that spot, or if Alan Lazard just holds on to it and he never gives it up.
Yeah. With this matchup, and especially just week 1 overall, it's a very exploratory thing, and I think the one thing that I'm not going to be shocked when it happens is when we're going to see a lot of Jay Sternberger just riding that waiver wire, going either getting dropped after this week or just remaining there after week 2 waivers clear, because I just don't see the Packers changing up. I don't see Rodgers changing up his play style at all.
Sure.
I don't see him starting to use a tight end that much. So
for a second I thought you were going to flip your take on Jay Sternberger, so I'd be like, I could see him being a sneaky waiver ad after this week.
I have been consistent that you do not want the Packers tight end because they don't use them.
Let's jump to the next one here. Falcons Seahawks. This one should be a shootout. 49-point total. We have up-year Matt Ryan on one side with his shiny new offense, breakout target Calvin Ridley, new Todd Gurley, newly traded for Hayden Hurst. He has all of his tools. They're all healthy.
Ito Smith is still there.
Sure. Other side of the ball, the Seahawks, obviously they have Decaf Metcalf, they have Tyler Lockett, they have Chris Carson. Is Will Dissly playing? I haven't actually checked.
Well, if he's not, then you get Greg Olsen. But with this matchup, I mean, I think the big question is, do you guys think that the Seahawks are going to let Russ cook? That's the big question.
Oh, no, not at all.
Everyone's been talking about, it was last year it was free Aaron Jones. Now it's, Quadzilla's there, so we're not worrying about that anymore.
Now
Aaron
Jones is dead and gone.
Yeah, he's been consumed by the quads. He's taking them on and stealing Aaron Jones' power. But this season is going to be the let Russ cook, and I think it's going to take a few games until Pete Carroll, swaps off his game style. But I think this is going to be a fine game. Russ is going to do Russ things. He's going to get 225, a pair of touchdowns, and 30 on the ground,
and not turn the ball over.
He's not going to turn the ball over.
I think he's going to do just enough to keep them in the game or potentially win them the game. Whereas we know the Falcons throw. We know that the Seahawks got Jamal Adams in the offseason. I would not expect big things out of Todd Gurley this week. And actually, contrary to a lot of advice going around the industry right now, I'm kind of nervous of starting Hayden Hurst this week because Jamal Adams, I love Hayden Hurst on the season, but Jamal Adams is a very good linebacker. He's someone who I wouldn't be shocked if because obviously linebackers are who you use in coverage against tight ends. Jamal Adams happens to play that position. I wouldn't be shocked if Jamal Adams can hold Hayden Hurst in coverage and Matt Ryan just sort of, wins the day with Julio and Calvin because we know he's able to through those two. I mean, I think Hurst could have an okay day, but everyone, I've seen a lot of people in the industry calling for him to have this, the start of the Hurst train, basically. The long may he reign for his time in Atlanta, and I think you might have to wait a week for Hurst to really break out. It's risky counting on last year's stats. Yes, the Seahawks were the second worst team against tight ends last year. That may change because when you get a guy like Jamal Adams, that tends to move the bar a little bit.
So should I go to my journal and personally tick off the where the pendulum now sits?
No. I'm very much still on the Hurst train. I drafted him a bunch. I still have a lot of faith in him on the whole of the season. I want to see how he works in this offense though first, and I feel like this is a tough test for him in the first week. If I drafted him and I don't have any other tight ends, I'm still starting him. But if I have, for in our league, I have Jared Cook and Hurst. I'm probably starting Cook over Hurst this week. Where if I have a safer option, I would do that over Hurst.
Okay, so most people don't have an option like that fell to them.
I did get Cook in the 12th, yes.
Just to kind of push you on that, Hurst or Blake Jarwin?
Oh, Hurst.
Okay, Hurst,
I don't like Jarwin that
Hurst
much.
or Gesicki?
Assuming just that.
Is this assuming health? Because Gesicki
With
is
the knowledge
questionable.
we know right now.
If Gesicki plays, I play Gesicki over him. The Patriots the Patriots are exploitable over the middle of the field, as we touched on in our last episode. Also, go back and watch that if you haven't yet, where we cover the first 7 matchups of this week. But just the Patriots should be exploitable over the middle of the field without Hightower there. I would take Gesicki over Hurst this week.
And just one last one, because he's the guy who took his job of Hurst or Hooper.
Hurst. I don't want to test that Ravens defense, and I don't like Hooper anyway. So. Like I said, there's still a lot of guys that I play Hurst over. I just think if you have a safer option, this is a good week to just utilize. Don't risk it against the Seahawks, because the Seahawks, we've seen them be a very good defense before. They could return to being a very good defense this year. So week 1 isn't the time to get cute with it. You don't need to reach for that win in week 1, but overall, I think this is a matchup where you play your starters and you move on. There's no deep diving in this one.
Yeah, don't try.
You're not playing Olsen. You're not playing Russell Gage.
Don't try and make the big brain play.
Yes, don't big brain yourself. Moving on to a much less fun matchup, although it could be surprisingly good for fantasy, but just kind of like crappy football. Raiders and Panthers, 47.5 total. Like, this could be a matchup where literally no defense is played.
Yeah, this one just feels like when you make the comparison when two good teams are just, going back and forth at each other. It's a rock fight. This is going to be a mud fight. It's just going to be messy. No one's going to like what they saw, but fantasy production will happen because
It's one of those games where you're not going to want to turn it on your TV. You just want to watch the stats accumulate on your game tracker.
I've got to say, I do own a lot of Josh Jacobs this week on DraftKings.
Yeah, Josh Jacobs was very nearly one of my money picks this week. He didn't end up making the cut because I have 2 other guys that I like a lot more than him, and I think Josh Jacobs will be pretty chalk. But he's only 6,800 on DraftKings, and he should feast against this defense.
He's gonna definitely return value if anything.
We talked about the Seahawks potentially being a sneaky good defense based on what they were last season. The Panthers should just be what they were last season. Yep. They didn't really do anything to change their defense. They're basically returning the same guys who, by the way, were 32nd against the run last season. So, yeah, this could be ugly. It's going to
be a rough week for them.
This could be a rock fight. I wouldn't recommend watching this game, but if you're playing DraftKings, start Josh Jacobs with confidence. If you drafted Josh Jacobs, you're obviously starting him. You're not. If you're sitting him for someone, you have a traumatic brain injury or something. I don't know.
What if he fell to the 3rd?
Who are you guys starting in this game outside of the big ones? So obviously, starting DJ Moore, you're starting Josh Jacobs. Are you starting anyone? Like, would you start Curtis Samuel in this game or Robbie Anderson? You're starting Christian McCaffrey, obviously. I can't believe I didn't mention him in the...
Yeah.
That was obvious, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Death, taxes, and start Christian McCaffrey. Or, what about on the Raiders side? Do you start Ruggs or Edwards?
No. Honestly, not.
What if you need to? Like, if you don't want kind of the same game as yesterday with the Dolphins, if you don't have a solid wide receiver core, you don't have a solid flex option, would you start Samuel, Anderson, Ruggs, or Edwards in your flex? Say you have any of them to choose from.
I would probably start.
For me, I would definitely run Edwards out there in my flex if I need to this week.
Yeah, I was gonna say if I have to, I'm starting Edwards because he is, with the news out of camp, apparently the best receiver on the Raiders.
Yeah, I'm interested in him this week.
I'm happy I got him in Dynasty, but. I mean, I think, I've watched some video. The talent's there. If you have to put him in a flex, I'm not mad about it. Because, if anyone is going to, put up points.
Sure.
It's going to be Jacobs. And it's going to be assuming they're number 1.
And then, honestly, I would consider streaming both these quarterbacks this week. If you need to, I mean, if you kind of got boned on quarterbacks, I mean, let's say you opened up with, Danny Dimes, your guy, or we hate his opening schedule, and you don't really have anyone else to stream, I would definitely consider picking up Teddy Bridgewater or Derek Carr and streaming them with confidence this week. Because like I said, I don't expect there to be any defense played in this matchup.
Yeah, I'd probably lean with Carr, and I do like Brian Edwards. That's why I went for him in a lot of end of draft rounds for our redraft leagues. I don't know how confident, so he's a guy I really want to have on my bench. Like,
sure.
I really want, if he's out there, go pick him up, put him on your bench, so you can have him there to see what happens.
I mean, like all rookies, you're never happy starting them in week one.
Yeah.
But like, if I have to start a rookie in week one, Brian Edwards is probably my favorite wide receiver rookie to start.
All right.
Cool. No other thoughts on that one. Let's jump to. I want to leave the floor open in case you guys have any closing
Dramatic
thoughts.
pause.
Dramatic pause. Chargers, Bengals, another abysmally low. It's got to just because it's Burrow's, NFL debut and it's Tyrod Taylor. I mean, the Chargers were we're going to get to this later in the episode with our 4-pack streaming defenses, where we, put our stamp on 2 defenses for the week. The Chargers were very nearly in it for me. They were very nearly someone I brought up. They could be a massive fantasy producer this week.
Yeah, they were a defense since I went very, very late and just took whatever I liked in the last round. I have a lot of shares of the Chargers this week. I think they're just a defense that's being slept on. I mean, they still have Joey Bosa, and they still have a lot of talent on that defense. And they are getting a rookie quarterback in his debut in a shortened offseason. There's a lot there that points to Burrow might still look good, but have some early struggles with just getting used to the game, full speed, all that stuff. I could see this being a game where the Chargers just kind of smother them with defense and just slowly grind out a 18-7 win.
I mean, Chris Harris Jr. and Casey Hayward Jr. are their cornerback duo. There aren't any Bengals I want to start this week. Maybe, I mean, you're starting Joe Mixon if you drafted him. But, like, any other Bengals that I drafted, I'm sitting him this week. I don't want to risk. I mean, AJ Green's a fantastic receiver. Tyler Boyd, fantastic receiver. If I have a better option, sorry, you're riding the bench this week. Like, because I don't believe. I think this defense could put, like, this is a tough. We talked about CH earlier having a amazing, sort of like rookie coming out party where he just kind of like blew doors in his first performance in the NFL. He did also get a little bit easier of a matchup. This is a very tough matchup for a rookie quarterback. And like, a pair of elite corners, an elite defensive end, coming off the edge on him. I don't expect anything from the Bengals this week. If there's anyone who gives a good performance, it's gonna be Joe Mixon. But you want to dodge this one hard. As far as Chargers go, I'm starting Keenan Allen. I'm starting Austin Eckler. That's it.
Yeah, it's pretty.
I mean, if you drafted Hunter Henry, you probably have to start Hunter Henry because you drafted him in the 7th round. But
yeah, he was a guy. Like I said, he's a guy I like. I've always liked him, but he just was going too high, so I just have no shares of him. He's a guy like Waller I loved as well, but his ADP was just a little bit too high, and there's guys I liked way more than his tight end price. But yeah, for me, it's just those two guys. Like, this is a matchup I'm barely touching, other than just the Chargers defense. I'm starting with them with heavy confidence. I'm not too worried about Keenan Allen, especially in half-point PPR and PPR, where I can get that cushion from just how many targets he's going to get due to the fact that Mike Williams is going to be out for, a month?
Yeah, I think Eckler is also going to get a lot through the air as well.
Yeah, Eckler should be a fine play this week.
guys, breaking news. Amazon picks up show starring Nicolas Cage as Joe Exotic as the Tiger King.
It's not breaking, but
It was an hour ago.
yeah, but that's hard. Let's go back to football.
I had to bring it up. I saw it. I was like, this is too great. Sorry. Yeah. No, I don't like this matchup much for fantasy at all. If you have one of those 3 guys, great. Otherwise, dodge it. Cardinals 49ers, a much more attractive game for fantasy. 48-point total. we finally get to see this new look Cardinals, DeAndre Hopkins, the game they've been building towards all off season. Kenyon Drake unleashed. I feel like this one could be a little bit one-sided on the Cardinals side of things. I mean, we've seen the 49ers just be decimated with injuries. Obviously, Ayuk and Deebo Samuel could play this week, but it's more of like, what are you getting from them? And then on top of that, they were in the Super Bowl. I wouldn't be shocked if we had, we've seen Super Bowl hangovers before with a lot of teams. I wouldn't be shocked if we saw Super Bowl combined with a less in training camp, so they just had less time to get ready. Obviously they lost, so the losing team typically has a little bit harder of a Super Bowl hangover. Wouldn't be shocked if we see them a little bit sluggish out of the gates. And if this Cardinals team is as fast or plays as fast as they say they're going to, I could see the 49ers struggling to keep up with them a little bit.
I mean, as far as their offense, I'm not too hyped about the Niners offense. I honestly think it's more of this is going to be the Kittle show.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be a big Kittle show for this one. Their defense, I'm not too worried about it because I think they'll take a step back, at least in the first few weeks because of, everything you just listed off. But I still think a sluggish Niners should be able to hang with the Cardinals. Mainly because I have always kind of been less buying in on how fast the Cardinals want to play just because they played better when they played slower. Just last year, when they brought their rate of play down, they started producing better numbers. I don't know if that was just Kyler in his rookie season. I don't know if they're ready to go now, but I'll go off what I saw last year and see that Cliff Kingsbury, who once again losing coach in college, his magic system has yet to prove itself. So if they now that they've got weapons, they don't need to go gimmicky with it. They can just beat you with their talent. I could see this being a slow, lower. This is one I would take the under 100% because I think both teams are going to just get their win and get out.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think the Niners are. I mean, even if they're down early, I don't know if Jimmy's going to be slanging it. I mean,
I don't think the Niners can keep up with them. I think if the Cardinals get up, the Cardinals can run away with it. Because obviously, the Cardinals have 3 wide receivers, all of whom you could make the case for being better than any wide receiver on the 49ers. I mean, Larry's a little old, but if you're going to believe in Larry, you believe in Larry at the beginning of the season because that's when his old ass legs can get down the field quicker. Christian Kirk would have been the alpha on this team if they didn't go trade for the best receiver in football. I mean, I was down on DeAndre Hopkins for all offseason, but if there's a game to like him, I think this might be one of the games because while I like Richard Sherman as a cornerback, I don't fear Richard Sherman like I used to, and Sherman's probably going to be shadowing DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins has schooled some of the best corners in the league.
Yeah, and that's only if Hopkins is on that side of the field. That's
the
other part of it. So they could just stick Andy Isabella, Kirk, Larry on that side, and let them have fun with their top corner, and just put Hopkins on their second corner.
Yeah, I think Hopkins should be in a smash spot this week. As I still don't love him season long, but this could be an interesting matchup for him where he could sort of feast on this, let's say, maybe a little bit unprepared 49ers defense. Outside of, Drake, Murray, D-Hop, Kittle, are you guys starting anyone?
I'm starting. I mean,
do you guys start Raheem Mostert this week, or do you wait to see what they're doing with that backfield?
I was considering it. I came off it after consideration because, again, crowded backfield.
Sure.
And also, I'm not really super convinced that the Niners are going to just pound the rock like they've done the past couple seasons. I don't think they're gonna. I think they're gonna try and.
I
don't know why you wouldn't be convinced they're not gonna pound the rock, but.
I'm okay. I'm not jazzed, but I'd start Mostert in my flex. If he's my running back 2, I'm worried. But if he's in my flex,
if he's your running back 2, you have to start him.
Yeah.
If he's your running back 2, I'm both worried and upset.
Plugging him in like, oh, this is not good.
Yeah, it's like you're just plugging your bandages into a wound it's not going to fix. It's just like, please stop.
You're duct taping the dam.
Yeah, you're just hoping that maybe you have such a deep wide receiver pool they can just drag you to a victory in spite of him. But no, I'm.
Outside of the obvious ones, you're fading it.
Oh yeah, like I like Andy Isabella, but not in this matchup.
He's a punt. He's a wide receiver punt in DFS, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean,
and that might be season long wide receiver punt at DFS, and that's it. I mean,
yeah,
that core is just too deep to really get anything. Like, you're running him out there as either someone got hurt and he's now in the top 3, or he's a gadget play and you're hoping to get a long bomb out of him.
Yeah, honestly, for me, I'm a little more. I'm a little more on the Isabella hype train. I liked him coming out of that draft, and I did like where he landed. Granted, it's a little more congested now. If I'm in a deep league, if I'm in like a 14-team league,
sure,
I'm throwing him on my bench just to see what he does this week.
Buccaneers, Saints, another 48-point total. Ooh. I've actually already been, in our group chat, I've already talked a little about this one, about how I actually think this could be a sneaky trap game. Two ancient quarterbacks. Saints have a good defense. Bucks have an improved defense. Brady's obviously brand new to the system. I wouldn't be shocked if this one didn't hit that total.
I have no shares of anybody in any game.
I mean, I'm starting Cook, but because I think Cook could easily get his without this being a high-scoring game. We saw it all the time last season, 46 and a touchdown.
Yeah.
But I don't love. I mean, I'm starting Godwin if I have him. Obviously, if you drafted Evans late addition to the injury report, so you actually might not be starting Evans if you drafted him. But assuming he's healthy, you're starting Evans. You're starting Godwin. You're starting Cook in Kamara and Thomas. You're probably forced to start Brady and Breeze, but I wouldn't be excited for having them as my quarterbacks this week.
Honestly, I'm still on the other side of this. Everyone wants to continually throw the age and the decline is here, but just like I said with Larry, if there's a time to buy in on these quarterbacks, it's now while they're fresh and ready to go. But
Sorry,
with these
fresh. Yes.
Yeah, like a
What
cabbage.
sense?
like fresh legs, not banged up over the
Fresh
course of,
42-year-old legs.
I mean, fresher than at the end of the season when you've got broken hairline fractures that you're playing through and stuff.
I disagree,
like that.
but I see your point.
Anyways, getting back to it, I mean, we've seen these guys still continue to produce. They both were fine last year, and as far as I'm not too jazzed about playing Breeze, but I think Brady could still put up points. I think as far as their teams, I'm still interested. I think most of the studs in this game can still get theirs, and I'm not. Like I said, I don't see it where everyone's too worried about it. They said they're both good defenses, and they'll make it tough. But at the end of the day, I still think these are two of the best offenses, and probably some is still at least for the Saints. I have the Saints as one of my favorites for a good Super Bowl run. And I think the other thing that was kind of surprising is a lot of the shade going to Kamara for this game, specifically around the fact that people.
I mean, the Bucks were a top 3 run defense last season.
Right, but the shade he's also a pass catching back. Like I said, we've seen how he gets it done. I think the thing that surprised me more is that people are shying away from him because of Latavius Murray. If he was getting it done with Mark Ingram, who I think is vastly superior to Latavius, then why would I be scared of Latavius being back there?
I mean, for me, the guys that I'm most scared about in this offense, I think Thomas still gonna have a fine game. Godwin's gonna have a fine game. Cooks can get involved, have a fine game.
Evans is.
I'm worried about Evans because of the late addition to the injury report. You never want to see that. When it's a late addition, I mean it's a fresh injury. Assuming he plays, he is going to be limited in some regard. So I don't love that. I don't like either of the quarterbacks. I think they could both struggle against their respective defenses. And then for Kamara, I am worried about Kamara running against that first-ranked. I checked to see where they were. They were first last season. First-ranked team against the run. They didn't lose any of those players, and their secondary can only improve. Their secondary was bottom of the barrel last year. Literally the 32nd worst secondary. So worst case scenario, they're the same as what they were. They should get better though over time because they do have some players back there. And then Kamara did just have that epidural. I mean, I don't feel comfortable. I mean, you're starting Kamara if you draft it. There's no way around it. But I don't feel comfortable starting Kamara against the first-ranked rushing defense right after he got a shot in his spine to reduce swelling in his discs.
Yeah. I mean, I'm again, you have to start Kamara if you draft him.
Yeah.
You're assuming you drafted him
But you
before.
got a bad feeling in your stomach about it. You know, this is a...
And also, I mean, I'm not happy to start Mike Evans. I mean, thankfully, you might not need to.
Like I said, there's a lot of gross plays in this matchup to me.
Well, I mean, we've always talked about Mike Evans too. How, I mean, he was my trap card. It's you're either going to get that 30, 40-point game if you're playing PPR, where he's going to get those 3 long touchdowns, or you're going to get like 0 to 5. It's Mike Evans. I've never been on Mike Evans. I'm never happy drafting him, but sometimes the value's just there and you just have to.
Yeah.
There's nobody else really in this game that I'm looking at. Like, there's no sneaky plays. This game's pretty straightforward. I don't think it's going to hit that over.
I will say I'm fading this game entirely except I might play a player or two in DraftKings, but for the most part I'm fading this game entirely. This could be I am acknowledging this. This could be the game that comes back to bite me after this week where, you know, I could fade this game almost, you know, I play Godwin or something as like just a standalone play, and it turns out the Tampa Bay just blows doors. Like I could be completely wrong about this game. I just have a bad feeling about it. There's too many red flags popping up on too many players when I go through my research on this one. So I'm off this game. A game that I'm very much not off of, though, and the final game on our slate, with the exception of the Monday games, Dallas Cowboys, Los Angeles Rams, a massive 51.5 total.
I don't think it's going to have that over.
Oh, this could be a I almost swore right there. This could be a shootout.
Is this going to be Chiefs Rams of last year?
I know it could be. Like, I mean, we've seen both these teams be able to play defense, but Jalen Ramsey can't cover everyone on that Cowboys defense. Amari Cooper, he's off the injury report now, but he's obviously still a little hobbled. He's struggled with Jalen Ramsey in the past. I don't think that this is Cooper's game, but you could see blow-up games from a lot of Cowboys in this. You know, Gallup has shown the ability to have that game-breaking talent. You know, before he got hurt last season, he had a 27-point fantasy game. He had some big games before he ended up on the injury report. You could see Gallup blow up. This could be a big first game in the NFL for CeeDee Lamb if he just catches a couple because Cooper's getting blanketed. Blake Jarwin, I just talked about I don't really believe in Blake Jarwin, but Blake Jarwin just could be the benefactor of being someone who has to catch passes in this one and have a big game. You know, Zeke should be able to run wild because he can just run away from Aaron Donald.
Yeah, this is a game I'm loving for offensive options here. Like I've said I like the Rams as a defense just because they have a lot of talent there. I'm hard fading their defense in this one just because I think it's going to be a massive scoring affair. I'm actually very surprised that the spread for this one is 3 points. I figured Dallas would be a little bit more favored than 3, but I agree completely with that the over-under of 51.5. I think this is going to be, you're going to see a lot of Gallup because I do think Ramsey's going to just blanket Cooper, and we know Cooper can have a disappearing act like Mike Evans, like Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I saw that last year.
This is going to be one of those games where just like other players we talked about today, you can't not start Cooper, or maybe you can. Maybe
I got him in the 5th.
Maybe you drafted absurdly deep, but you probably can't sit Cooper, but you want to sit Cooper here if you can.
Yeah, this is where if you're someone who's a big Cooper fan or you're a Dallas fan, and you're wondering why are they down on Cooper, it's games like this. Yeah. It's games like this, or just even random times where Cooper and these big boomer bust guys you have to pay through the nose with your draft capital. This is where we don't like them. Yes, because they can steal a game for you. You can absolutely drop 30, 40 points and steal a game for you, but they can also drop a nice goose. And you paid a 3rd round, 4th round value for these guys.
Also, to me, the close spread on this one, the +3 for the Rams. If I'm looking at this, I'm trying to rationalize why. to me, the Cowboys just don't have the defensive weapons to keep up with the Rams' offensive weapons. So I honestly feel like this one's just going to be like, the Cowboys obviously are just such a deep offense where the Rams physically do not have enough people to cover all of them. And then the Rams' top options are just going to feast this week. I mean, if you have Robert Woods, if you have Cooper Kupp, if you have Tyler Higbee, if you have Gerald Everett, Cam Akers, Malcolm Brown, just throw them out there. Like, to me, it's like, if you need to start basically anyone in this one, I'm kind of okay with it. I'm not. You could sell me on almost any of the offensive options in this one, and I love Jared Goff as a starter in this one. Like, ooh, yeah, this could be a fun Goff game. This could be one of those like 4 touchdown Goff games, as opposed to one of those 4 interception Goff games. I don't know. Do you guys have any other thoughts about this one?
Nope. Love it for the offense, hate it for the defense. And that's basically it.
Cool.
Go
Let's
Cowboys.
go to the final part of our weekly matchup breakdown, where we give you guys, we're going around the table, we're going to give you guys a couple quick starts of the week, money picks of the week. That's for tournament games in DFS. So those are guys that we think could be big plays for your DFS lineups that you should try and get in there if you can. We're going to give you a waiver stash, someone to toss on your bench before the week starts. So that way, if something happens or if they blow up, you've already got them. And then we're going to give you guys 2 streaming defenses of the week. Frankie, why don't you take us away with your starts first? We'll do 2 starts, 2 starts, 2 starts, and we'll continue on to the money picks.
So my start's out of the NFC East. The Cowboys home, and it's not an Eagles player because also the Birds, not a fan of them, despite what Vitalik says. Mr. Terry McLaurin. I think he's gonna. We've seen those slot guys against the Eagles, and honestly, pretty much every receiver against the Eagles in the past just kind of put up those numbers. And Terry's already shown that he can be that guy in Washington. He's already shown he can do it. I see nothing wrong with starting him. I'm starting him wherever I can.
Sure, makes sense. Game script is great.
And it's like I think the Eagles are going to go up early. He's going to be the one who's going to run it back.
Yeah, no fights for me. Who's number 2?
My other one actually is, you already touched on him a little bit, Mr. Kittle Cat out in Arizona. I think he's going to have a great game as well. Jimmy's averaging 375 and 4 touchdowns over this last season. I think that even if that gets toned back, all the receivers in San Francisco are kind of dead at this point or injured. So
yeah, he should be the nozzle of the funnel for that passing offense.
He's going to be the focal point of that throwing attack.
Yes,
if there is any.
Everything's going through him. Patel, who are you looking at? Who are your starts?
So I'm actually going to be talking about an Eagle, Mr. Dallas Goedert. I would put both of them in there, but I think I want to target Goddard specifically based on all the injuries that are on the Eagles this week and the fact that they get Washington. And we know how bad they are. I picture Philly is just going to trounce Washington this week, and we know how much Philly loves to throw their tight ends, and there's just a lack of options. So put those 2 things together. The Ertz owner, he's going to get his. But if you're waffling between some tight ends, if you got Goddard late, start him. Put him in your lineup. Start him.
Would you say maybe if you have Hayden Hurst, you would start Goddard over him?
Goddard over Hurst. Not even a thought. Like, I love him for this week, and just don't even worry about it. He said he's gonna get his. Start number 2, Juju Smith-Schuster. I love this guy, and I hate how little I got of him this year. But he's going against the Giants, who their defense scares me about 0%.
Oh, their defense scares me.
I'm real scared there. But Big Ben's back, fresh off that Tommy John, and he said he is feeling it in his arm this week. Like, no pain. Like, I feel like we're gonna get some quality Big Ben this year. And then Deontay Johnson's been dealing with an injury, so they're gonna have to rely on somebody. And I think Juju's just gonna be ready to feast against the G-Men. And I think the G-Men will put up a respectable game against that Pittsburgh defense. I don't think they're going to beat them, but they're going to at least make Ben have to respect him and have to throw. So this could start off with a little bit of back and forth with Pittsburgh taking it late. So, yeah, I'm all in on Juju this week.
All right, my 2 guys. One on a real bad team, one on a real good team. DJ Chark's my first one. I initially was kind of down on him a little bit. More I look into it, the more I think this is a brain dead start. He's such a good wide receiver. We've seen good wide receivers succeed on bad offense before. Just throw DJ Chark out there. It doesn't matter who you have behind him. He is the Jaguars are going to be playing from behind. So just throw DJ Chark out there. They're going to have to throw to keep up. Game script and talent will win out. DJ Chark will get his garbage time points count the same as regular time points.
Yeah, he's going to basically be like Will Fuller, where even though his quarterback's running for his life, even though they're down, he's still going to get his because he's the most talented guy and there's nobody else.
Yep. And then my other guy, Mark Ingram, a guy who I sung the praises of all offseason. And if you have him, you honestly might not have to start him because he could be your third or fourth running back. Start him with confidence this week. Roll him out there against this putrid Browns run defense, who was 25th worst against the run last year and didn't really do anything to address that. They brought in a new defensive coordinator, but like a new game plan can only affect so much. The Ravens love to run. It's a match made in heaven. Start with confidence. And then I'll just turn right back around and lead off with the money picks. I'm real confident in my two guys this week. First one is someone who you might not expect me to be confident in. Mitch Trubisky is going to feast against the Lions this week, and he could be a legitimate tournament winner for you on DraftKings. No more slave for the Lions, which can only mean good things for the, let's say, accuracy-plagued Mitch Trubisky. But Trubisky actually has a career record of 3-0 against Detroit. And in 2019, he threw for 511 yards and 6 touchdowns with 1 pick in 2 victories over the Lions. And he's only $5,400. He's the same price as his backup. He's cheaper than a lot of other guys out there. I mean, some guys that are priced higher than him that I like way less. Cam Newton, Teddy Bridgewater, Derek Carr, Gardner Minshew, Joe Burrow, Kirk Cousins, Baker Mayfield, Tyrod Taylor is more. Jameis Winston is more expensive than him. Like, roll this guy out there and just
confused by that.
Enjoy the points.
Yeah, Justin Herbert's 100 more than him.
If you're a long-time DFS player, you know that every season in the first couple weeks, there's always a couple guys who are priced very inefficiently. This is one of those times where you can take advantage of that and potentially win some big tournaments with it. And then my other guy, who is actually, I think, priced very efficiently, but he's in such a smash spot that you can't ignore him. Devontae Adams has a massively strong matchup against the Vikings. I mean, last year in 2 games against Minnesota, he averaged 12.5 targets, 10 catches, and 1,100 receiving yards a game. Like, you can't. He's only 7,300, so he's cheaper than some of the other guys, and I don't even think he's going to be that chalk because Michael Thomas is on this slate, and Michael Thomas historically draws a large amount of the play. If you're buying an expensive guy, you probably aren't buying 2 of them unless you're going crazy cheap everywhere else. Most people are probably going to be on either Thomas or Julio, both of whom are more expensive than him. So buy in on Adams because you might be able to get a guy who's going to have a massive performance at a comparative discount compared to the field because he could only have 10 to 15% of the field on him. So yeah, I'm very much in on them.
All right, I'll take it from here because I think it transitions well. We were talking about punting at other positions, so I'll start with a tight end play I like this week. Tyler Eifert. Going back to the Jags, I mean, they're, as you said, they're going to be behind, so they're throwing. Tyler Eifert is a very talented tight end. His only issue is injury. If you just got to count on him for week 1 when he's at his freshest with Teal Steele, who he's already built rapport with so fast, I think if you're looking for someone cheap because you're trying to plug in Devontae Adams and maybe another expensive play, he's great value at $3,300. So you're spending bargain bin prices, and he can really save you in spots where you're trying to build a roster around him. And you throw him in there. I think he's good. He has a good shot at getting a touchdown in this game, just due to the lack of people to throw to and the fact that they're going to just have to sling it all day.
I will say too, at 3,300, all he needs is like 20 yards and a touchdown to pay off.
Exactly, and that's not hard for him to do with his. He could really pay out for somebody, or he could just give you back your money basically. My other guy doesn't really require much value because Ian already talked him up so much for me. Jared Goff. You love Trubisky. Give me $300 more, and you get yourself Jared Goff, who's in a laser show of a matchup where they're just gonna be slinging it back and forth. And another thing that Ian has really preached and talked about why he likes certain plays. Goff, you can pair him with his one or both of his receivers and a stack and really get your money.
I mean, you could super stack the Rams and pair him with both his tight ends also. If you think it's really going to be if you're trying to differentiate yourself from the field, no one's going to be starting Jared Goff and 4 Rams.
Yeah, like I said, he has stack, he has double stack, he has super stack potential, and he is not breaking the bank at 5,700. So, I mean, those two guys I think are both just. I always like to go shoot for the guys who can help you get the chalk plays in there. And I think these are two guys that can really do it for you.
I will say just one thing to note for Goff. He is the Sunday night game, so depending on what slate you're playing, he may not be available. So just keep that in mind. But if you are playing a game that includes the Sunday night game, fantastic play. Franco, who you got?
Well, I already addressed this in the Kittle take, but I mean, Jimmy G. I mean, worst running pass defense in the league last year. I'm playing him everywhere I can. I mean, 5,800, so a little bit more pricey than your guys, but I think the matchup's really good. I think that, again, they're probably not going to throw the ball a ton, but I mean, another cheap play. And then, we're going back to that Detroit game with Trubisky. I have Anthony Miller, who is a measly 5,000. I think that Anthony Miller this year is going to take a step forward, and again, Slay is gone. So he's not going to have, in addition to not having the top corner already, that top corner is not even an option to cover him. And I mean, if he returns, touchdown, but 50, 60 yards, I mean, probably happy with it.
No, I really like Anthony Miller, especially if you're starting Trubisky. Pairing him with Anthony Miller allows you to get really creative with that lineup.
Yeah, as far as I stacked the Arizona game instead, so I have Garoppolo, Bourne, and Kittle. Bourne was another guy I was looking at who's priced exactly the same as Anthony Miller. But I just stacked different games, so.
All right, and then for our waiver stashes, I'm doing Joshua Kelly. Pretty simple reasoning. The Chargers like him. They spent some decent draft capital on him. We've seen last year where they had the opportunity to use Justin Jackson and they didn't. They obviously don't want to run that kid out there. Joshua Kelly could just kind of, thanks to being drafted to the right team, inherit the Melvin Gordon role on that team, which we know is a good role for fantasy. And he went basically undrafted, so there's a good chance he's available on your waiver wire right now. If I am offering advice to fantasy owners, go out there, see if he's there. If he is, grab him and stash him before this week, because if Joshua Kelly, runs out there this week and has 13 touches for 70 yards and a touchdown, because he's the running guy as opposed to Eckler being the passing guy, you're going to have to fight for him in waiver order this week. So go out there and grab him now, and then you can brag to your league mates afterwards about how smart you are.
Yeah, or you can just be even smarter and go take a guy that was the yardage receiving leader for Pittsburgh, Mr. James Washington. Everyone's talking up Deontay. He was the hype train this year. And as we saw with KC last night, sometimes hype trains are just, they're mirages. They're ghost trains. I'll take the guy who actually did something in an offense.
Are you talking about Mecole Hardman?
Yes, I'm talking about Mecole Hardman. James Washington produced in a putrid offense last season, more so than Juju Smith-Schuster. So the kid has some talent, and if Deontay's hurt, he could easily step into a big role. Go ahead and take him, stash him on your bench, and I doubt you'll be hurting for it, because if he does nothing, you cut him.
As much as it pains me to say this, if he is in your league and you have him on your bench, go and pick up Quadzilla.
Go Quadzilla!
Because the free Aaron Jones party is still going on.
There goes Tokyo.
And we don't know what this Packers offense is going to be yet. We don't know if they're going to be super slanging it to Devontae and Lazard. If Aaron Jones is going to hold the stranglehold in that backfield. If he's going to keep those goal line carries. And if it turns out that Quadzilla is just the goal line guy, I mean, pick him up late. He's going to be vulturing touchdowns. If you have room And I mean, if he doesn't pan out, whatever. Wait, I would say wait. Honestly, 1 to 2 weeks, see what happens. But you definitely want to see what happens in this first week and see how he's going to fit into the offense, because I have no doubt that he's going to be a part of the offense.
And the key thing with all these waiver stashes, these are guys who are advocating picking them before this week, so that way if they break out, you already own them. If they don't, and there's a sexy waiver claim out there after this week, don't be afraid to just cut these guys for that waiver claim, because as it happens every year, there's always those guys in the first 1, 2, maybe 3 weeks of fantasy football where you get a shot at them and then they disappear entirely. Like the Terry McLaurins and Marquise Browns of last year, or the Darren Wallers and TJ Hawk. Like, they don't pop up after the first or second week, really. So these are guys where you want to add them, and if they don't work out, cut and ties entirely. Separate entirely from them. The dentist system on your waiver stash. You do not want to get overly attached to guys that could be waiver fodder. Let's close this out with our 4-pack defenses. I'll do one, and which of you guys wants to do Philly?
Well, I'll let you take that one since you're the Philly fan and you were more in on this defense. Because I personally was more into the Titans this week.
Fair. So my smash start streaming defense of the week, and honestly my number 1 ranked defense this week, the Indianapolis Colts. They get the putrid Jacksonville Jaguars. The Colts improved their defense this offseason. The Jaguars got worse almost everywhere. I don't see a world where they aren't a top 5 defense unless the Jaguars somehow just I don't know, maybe, I guess if Gardner Minshew's the guy, if Gardner Minshew really is the next Tom Brady or something, then maybe this is a bad take. But I don't think it is. I think there's a pretty good chance that the Colts are going to show up and score a lot of points for fantasy owners this week. You could easily end this week with a pair of turnovers and a defensive touchdown for the Colts because Gardner Minshew just gets baited into a pair of bad picks or something. So go out there if they're out there, which they might be because they weren't highly drafted in a lot of my leagues, and they don't seem that they're highly drafted looking at ADP. So if they're out there right now, go out there, grab them, start them over literally anyone.
Yeah, I don't really think I need to go into a lot of depth about why Philly is my start of the week. That Washington offense looks abysmal aside from pretty much Terry McLaurin. I mean, we'll see what Antonio Gibson is. And I mean, the Philly run defense is more of what I'm big on. They've always had a good front line. I think Terry's going to eat, but other than that, I don't see anybody else really producing on that offense.
Well, and Haskins is bad enough that Haskins could just throw a couple of bad picks on his own. Like, you don't have to exactly have to bait him into picks.
Oh, I think there's going to be a lot of sacks on the side of
Yeah.
Philly getting to Haskins.
A lot of sacks, a lot of tackles for losses, probably some bad turnovers. You know, all the things that you love to see in a streaming defense.
Yeah, like I said, even though I'm a little more on the Titans this week, especially because of them adding Jadeveon Clowney, I don't hate either of those picks. Like I said, I still do have the Colts as probably like my number one, but if I was picking a number two, Eagles, Titans, I think they're both great.
I will say too, if the Titans are out there, the Titans also are a great start, especially with Cortland Sutton probably not playing. The Titans were drafted in a lot of leagues, so they might not be available. But if they are, if you can't get either of these guys, Titans are a good tertiary, third place pick. All right, that'll do it for us. Join us Sunday morning as the 4-pack comes to you live at 12:30 Eastern. Actually, I'm sorry, 12 o'clock Eastern time.
Not midnight.
With some, yes, not midnight. 12 o'clock Eastern time with some pregame talk and lineup construction. We'll be talking some DFS, some redraft, answering any questions you guys might have. So make sure to tune in then. Keep us company. We'd love to see you guys. And tune in Monday as we walk back through the week and talk about some of the week's best plays, best duds, and everything in between.
Best duds is a misnomer, but we're gonna.
Frankie, I will cast a curse on more of your fantasy players.
I think I've already done that enough.
All right, that'll do it for us today. You guys have a good one.